in this earthly view, and Bill, I forget what's possible. I forget the way it's intended to be, and I kind of settle on where I am. Well, it is exactly to that picture that Paul is writing to the church at Ephesus. I mean, to that question, he answers it. Is it possible for it to be more?
Are you supposed to be John Mark? Are you supposed to be Stephen? Is that relationship supposed to be real? Is the Holy Spirit supposed to be part of your everyday? Yes. The answer is yes. And let me tell you why. Let me remind you why. And that's from 1:1 all the way to the middle of chapter 3. The reason it's yes, Brother Bill, is because who you are. Now, who are you? You're the one who was quickened. And you have been quickened. He's made you alive. He's made it new. That old doesn't exist anymore. And now you're living, breathing, abundant. You're a vessel for all of this. Is it supposed to be yes? Yes, because let me tell you who you are. You have a new habitation, Ben. You're now living in the heavenlies. That's amazing. But also, 3 verses before that, let me tell you what he said. He said, in you is a habitation. Christ habitates inside of you. So yes, it's possible. It's not only possible, it's the way it's supposed to be. And he goes on and on and on. And he gives us all of these things about who we are. And then in chapter 3, right there in the middle, about verse 15, 16, it changes and he goes, Justin, not only is the answer yes, because of who you are and all the things you've been given, but the answer is yes. Now just turn your car on. And we're going to stay with that analogy because then we don't have to spend the time to go through it. But turn your car on and it starts running. The engine's running. These things start to happen, Brother Hamilton. It's not only possible, it's the way it's supposed to be. Quit pushing on that thing and turn the ignition. And then, doesn't stop there. But Justin, we need encouraged so much to know. Because what we've been used to is so drastically different from what we're supposed to be. Okay? And if we're not careful, that common becomes okay. So he goes from that passage there in the middle of chapter 3, and he goes to chapter 4, and in chapter 4 he starts that whole picture again with, but because of who you are, walk in accordance to who you are. Walk worthy. Yes, it's possible. It's the way it's supposed to be. And then he tells us that starts with your attitude. This change starts by being humble, by being meek, by being long-suffering, and just loving people. Our attitude, our interaction with people is supposed to be humble, long-suffering, patient. Yes, it's possible. And then he goes from there. He says, let me give you a little help. Let me give you a little help. Not only is it possible, but I want you to have the encouragement of the body. Okay? You're all going to be part of one body because you're all going to struggle, and you're all going to need help, and you're going to need encouragement. You're even going to need to be carried sometimes. And in the body, in the unity of the body, all of this can take place because of what's supposed to happen. Yes, that's how you're supposed to live. Not only is that how individually Brother Maddox we're supposed to be, but the church as a body is supposed to be that way. It's as strong as the weakest link, and we're all supposed to be growing. We're all supposed to be that way, Brother Doug. So this church, this body too stuff, this Christ on earth, is pretty powerful. It's pretty impressive. It's pretty attractive. When we lift it up, people say this is different. If I lift it up, I'll draw all men. Brother Max, I've said this lots of times, but that's one of them troubling verses to me. Because since I struggle so much getting people's attention, I wonder what I'm lifting up. And then it doesn't stop. Because Justin goes on from there, and he says, yes, start your car, walk worthy. In this worthy walk, there's going to be this unity. But then, I know you're going to need help, so I've gifted the body. I've gifted the body to help you. In fact, I've especially gifted it with pastor teachers who are going to example and teach Christ.
things you put off, again, they end up being thought life.
It's not the things we want to put off. It's not the list we want to build so we can feel good about ourselves. We can compare to this person, now we're better. It changes everything right here. And then we're going to get to a new section. We're going to introduce a new section that talks about maybe you put some stuff off. But we need to put some stuff on. Now, we're going to start at verse 17, which is where we started last week. And we're going to try to get to verse 24 this morning. 17, this I say therefore, and testify in the Lord, that ye henceforth, which again, Josh, listen to me, this is important. You ready? He's telling you not to walk like the Gentiles, not to walk like the unsaved, not to walk like those of the world. You know why he has to tell you that? Well, I've been saved since I've been in church, and I graduated from here, and yeah, but it's possible for you to live life that way. And that's why he's telling you not to. And that's another one of those scary thoughts. It's possible. It's possible for all these things he's about to describe, the things we're supposed to put off. Justin, it's possible that we're still wearing all these nasty, dirty, stinky clothes, the way we think. So he gets right here, verse 17, this I say therefore, and testify in the Lord, that you henceforth walk not as other Gentiles walk. And now he paints the picture of the way they do it in the vanity of their own mind. And that picture is, don't walk in this place where you are the deciding factor. You determine your response. You determine what's supposed to be right. Everything is justified because you thought it, so you do it, and it's other people's problem to deal with it. Hamilton, who would think like that? Well, that happens every day. That happens at work. That happens in homes. That happens in Christian schools. That happens all the time. Self-centered viewpoint of life, and everybody has to adjust to me. I determine what is right. Now, yesterday I get a guest at about 7 o'clock. And the guest is a mess. Doug, this is a kid, he's probably, 30 years old. Graduated from here, went to school here 2-3 years. And Matt, he's now in a place where he's 30 years old, homeless, has no place to go, and is 3 weeks out of jail. So, this is a pretty long conversation. It starts all the way back to, well, let's take a look at how you got here. Well, I know how I got here, those policemen. No, let's take a look at how you got here. And Bill, this goes all the way back to when he was in the house. When he went in the house, in fact, when he was in school here. And teachers tried to help him, but he didn't think the same way they did. And he just thought they ought to get along with his program. And so there was like 3 years of this. No, I was his football coach, Johnny, so I didn't have any of this. Because I had a motivation they didn't have. He wanted playing time. But they were never able to get an example where he saw a life that he wanted. And so there was just 3 years of this. And he couldn't wait to get out. And during those 3 years, because I was his football coach, I spent some time talking to his mom and dad. And you know what his home was like? A lot of this, mom and dad just need to get on pace with me. Some hiding, some fighting, some confrontation. But in the end, the world just needs to think my way. And it didn't. So he couldn't wait to get out of there. Then he went through a couple jobs. And he had a problem at every place he went to work, Doug. Because the boss just didn't do things his way. And so, job after job after job after job. Until finally, he just had no job and nowhere to go, and started taking some, I don't know what it is. I think it's a synthetic. I tried to look it up, but I just didn't want to spend that much time reading about it. I think it's a synthetic amphetamine. It's called Spice. And since it's cheap to make, and you can make it in a bathtub, and who knows what you get, he spent a couple of months just totally, That's where he got arrested. He had no place to go, so he broke into an empty house. And it was empty, but you still can't break in.
And so they arrested him. And Rob, now he's in jail. He's in jail. In fact, he started in your pod. He's in jail. And you know he had a problem in jail. And he spent most of his time in jail in solitary confinement. Because those deputies just did not do things the way he was supposed to. This is a long list. So then, he gets out. He serves his time because nobody's coming to rescue him. Every time anybody's tried to help him in his life, he's bit them on the hand. You keep getting bit, you quit petting that dog. And so they just left him there. He served all of his time. Gets out. They send him, court-ordered, remanded to rehab. Why? Because when they arrested him, he was out of his mind. Well, Ben, can you believe this guy has nowhere to go? He's homeless. Every person who he knows left him there. He's in rehab where they're feeding him and housing him. And you know what he thinks? He thinks they're not treating me fair. So it's time for me to leave. About 2 weeks being homeless, he goes knocking on his dad's door. His dad thinks, well, there's only one reason somebody would leave food and housing, and that's because they didn't want to be in rehab. They're not looking to rehab, they're looking to have. Well, you know, I spent a while with him. That's probably not true, but that's a good assumption. What he's missing is the problem. No, the reason he's not in rehab is because he's just not going to be told what to do. If this world would ever get right, they'd do it his way. So now there he is, 30 years old, made a huge mess out of his life. And Justin, you just look at that and say, how can a guy be so, we'll use the word, comes up in the next verse, ignorant? I mean, doesn't it? It just sounds terrible. Well, I'm going to take you back to a picture I painted last week. You know, it's the dad at home, who screams and yells and intimidates and then gets mad because fear. And they don't come and they don't hug. Or we'll go so far as to say, this is my house. And then, you know, they don't feel part of it. You know, the spouse doesn't want to clean it. It's after it's yours, you do it. The kids don't want to sacrifice or be part of it. And that person just sits right there saying, well, when are they going to learn? And man, they just repeat that behavior over and over and over again. And just, when are you guys going to get with it? Okay, that's not one bad person. That's not two bad people. That's the selfish, empty, vain way the world thinks. That's the way a Christian who has not renewed his mind daily. You know, Colossians says that we mortify the deeds of the flesh. You know when we do that? Daily. If we don't do that daily, then this selfish, empty, vain way of thinking jumps up in our life. So Paul writes to them in verse 17, and he says, don't do this. Don't live this way. Verse 18, having the understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God in the ignorance that is in them. They're ignorant. They're blind. I talked to him for over an hour. It took an hour for him to say, okay, I see your point. Well, but just blind. This is what happens if you start talking about the world being ignorant. The world is ignorant. Do you not realize we've split the atom? We get energy from, we. How are you going to call the world ignorant? Well, I wrote these things down this morning. I threw away what I had down here because it would take me too long. I just put these things down because I could just go through them fast. All right, we have a group in the world, but especially in our country, that chants, my body, my choice. And they chant this with the idea of trust the science. Well, let me give you the first blip in the science. We determine body Because this is how court cases are settled, by DNA. You do understand you have two DNAs in that body. They're different. It's not my body, my choice. It's my body and a different DNA. And this same group, by the way, Brother Bill, it says, my body, my choice, is the same group that ran around and say, you need to get jabbed so that I can be safe. Darkened, ignorant, makes no sense. How about this? You got this group that says, you must say, they, them, everybody gets to choose how they identify. I was going to make my hash browns this morning. I get the biggest skillet we have. I shred 2 of the biggest potatoes I can find. And then I shred a little bit of onion. I put it in a pan, and you got to make this whole pancake. And I just love to lean back on the counter and flip the whole thing. Everybody come watch. It's really good. Well, I got ready, and I couldn't find any big potatoes, just a bunch of little potatoes. I'm not patient enough to do like 6 little potatoes. Got to be just 2 big potatoes. But I already started to do the onion. And so I'm in this picture. So that's what I thought. That onion can identify as an apple all you want to. But take a bite out of it. It's still an onion. How does this make sense? But it makes sense. It's gone to court and made sense. We have governors that make sense. We're voting making it make sense. We have people gluing themselves to stages because it makes sense. Oh, we could talk about the whole electricity thing. You know, the whole electricity. We need electric cars to pump full of electricity that we make from oil, that we're going to buy from somebody else who doesn't care about the environment when we can produce it 10 times cleaner than they do. And by the way, they're our enemies. Makes sense. Education today confuses more than it explains. Josh tried to pick a fight with me the other day. He asked me, so what do you think about the prisoner exchange, Dad? Oh, no, he was laughing. I think we took a woman who broke their law. Now, their law might be harsh. I might even disagree with how they carried it out and what they did. But it's their law and their country. Brother Hank, you can disagree with my house, but it's my house. You don't like it? Leave. It's their country. Now, we gave up a man who's probably responsible for killing over 100,000 people to get back a female basketball player. Kind. I want credit for that. And left an FBI agent there and a former Marine. It was more important for us to get back an anti-American athlete. And we stood out in front of the White House and took credit for this like we did something good. You know what happened the very next day on Russian TV? They made fun of us for how bad we were taken advantage of. This makes sense. Ignorant. Okay, this way. For Jeremy, I like it so much when you pick on those guys. Okay, well, let me go back to the dad in the house. It makes sense to him. The guy berating his wife, it makes sense to him. I will tell you, I know the relationship of this father and the son. Here, you want to know? You want to know where the son learned to think just like he thinks? He's a clone, a skinnier clone, but he's a carbon copy. Which is why his dad never parented him. Just said, when he gets on board and thinks like me, things will be better. No humility there. No grace there. No wisdom there. Let's just, because we got to get into these new verses. Having their understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God through the ignorance that is in them because of the blindness of their heart, who being past feeling have given themselves over. Past feeling. I used this as an illustration. Last week. You know, it's the couple who comes to church. And, you know, they come to church and at first they do all their fighting in the car. And if things go bad in church, it'll be, I'll see you in the car. Feel the love and forgiveness and care and tenderness. But then at some point, Stephanie, it just becomes too much and I don't care. Since I'm living in the vanity of my own mind, that person just deserves what I'm about to say. They need this. And so you're ugly in a restaurant. You're ugly in a store. You're ugly at church. You'll do it anywhere because it doesn't matter. You're living in the vanity of your own mind. Your past guilt, your past review, it's all gone. The world needs to hear what you think. You want to know what's bad? Sometimes we even wrap that up in biblical verses. Which is why I love to point out the fact, yes, it's a battle for the mind, and he challenges us to reason, but God gives us choice. He does not manipulate us or push us or puppet us or, here it is. I'll even give you the Spirit to make sure you understand and see, but you choose. He is not a respecter of persons. He treats us all with respect. We're his creation, and he loves us. We can't even do the same. I'll love you as long as you think like me. If not, brother, well, you're pretty big, so I'm not. If not, brother, I'm going to tell you about him. Then it goes into this picture of who have given themselves over to lasciviousness. I want to spend some time talking about that verse, that word. There are two words used here in this passage that really get misunderstood. Lasciviousness is one, the other is lust. Anytime those things pop in our head, we automatically go to sensual sin. And sometimes that's exactly what they're dealing with. But lasciviousness does not have to do with sensual sin. 4 times in the Bible, Galatians, 5:19? That's one of those places. It's most common. It's where everybody goes. 4 times in the Bible, that's exactly what it's talking about. It's talking about sensual sin. The worst you can be. But that's really what lasciviousness is talking about. It's the worst you can be. See, there's 3 times it's talking about, like in 1 Peter 2, 3, I'd have to look. It's talking about, drunkenness. It's this drunken party idea where you know what, I just give myself over to drunkenness because then anything that happens is okay and that's my pursuit and I don't care. I don't care how, that is all that matters to me. You see, like the whole sensual picture, it's like an animal where I just don't care. Self-fulfillment's all that matters. Discard, mistreat, who cares? It's all about me. Well, then you have this same picture when it talks about this alcohol consumption party kind of picture. And then you have the third way it's used, 3 different verses. It's like it is here. Greediness. You see, here's this picture of lasciviousness with greediness. It's this debauchery, Doug. It's just the worst of the worst. This might be the dirtiest, nastiest word used in the Bible. Sometimes it's described, it's interpreted lasciviousness. Sometimes it's wantonness. But doesn't matter. Either way, it's the same picture. It's just out and out consumption of someone else with greediness. It's all that matters. That's what happens. This selfness, me first, becomes the consuming picture. Ask this guy, What's the most important thing to you, Dad? My children? He consumed them. This self, me first attitude, it destroyed the relationship. It hampered those children. It's somebody that chases drugs. We'll take the boy. 30 years old. Best job, first treatment. He's got to get the job if he doesn't get arrested for a bench warrant for leaving rehab. You know what they do at the end of rehab? They help you find a job. You know how hard it's going to be for this guy to go find a job? Any decent job runs a background check. Thank you, waste my time. 30 years old, best bet, go to work at McDonald's. Do that for a while. 4 years later, 5 years later, okay, now some time's passed, maybe. He's 35, 36 years old. It's not somebody else's fault, though. You know who made those decisions? His me first attitude. It's got to be broken. Here's the picture. It ends up in the place, lasciviousness with greediness. Yeah. Miss Debbie, please tell me that sounds terrible. Sounds horrible, right? I'm going to ask you another question. What do you think it's like to live in a home with that person? What would it be like if that was your spouse? Or your father? Or your mother? Or Donnie, your child? What if that's how your child dealt with the home? I'm going to tell you, that might be the toughest. You'd have to turn your brain off, because you'd start thinking, why is he this way? And all those times would pop up in that head, because you're no dummy. Those things would be brought back to memory. Which makes the next verse so precious to me. Rob, I love the next verse. Verse 20, listen to this. But ye have not so learned Christ, if so be that ye have heard of him and have been taught by him. The truth is in Jesus. He is truth. I don't have to be blind. I don't have to be dumb. I don't have to live ignorant. I'm not under power anymore. Freedom is mine. I'm a co-heir. The Spirit has sealed me. All things are new. That ye put off concerning the former conversation of the old man, which is corrupt according to the deceitful lust, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Doug, people are going to argue with me that they're going to be wrong. Because biblically, here's the thing. An unsaved person can't put it off. Can't. But every saved individual ever on this planet not only can, but should put off the old man. I do not have to think that way. I do not have to live that way. In fact, Brother Maddox, I'll tell you, he went to the cross, and he became sin for us. You know, Corinthians. And in Corinthians, he became sin for us because what happened on that cross is he crucified my old man. My old, this is not my old man. It's the old man. It's not your old man. We don't have, the old man is crucified. We just have to choose to put off his old way. Why do we want to hold on to it so much? Why is being... that clock, I hate that clock. So we go through this fast. We're going to be right back here next week. But there is one important thought that we have to realize, and that is this. We have to recognize the fact that the old man still has pull on us. It is a conscious effort. It takes a commitment of the will to put it off. It didn't actually happen. You know what happened at salvation? I became joint heir. I have a new habitation. I'm sealed with the Spirit. Lots of things happened at salvation. I have everything I need to put it off. But he tells me I need to do that. I made it possible. I'll not leave you. I'll be with you. But you must daily put it off. We have to recognize it takes an act of our will. We're involved here. By the way, he's always wanted us involved. Go all the way back to creation. Go all the way back to creation. Brother Max, at creation, it was all good. Yes? But let me tell you, it wasn't all done. What do you mean it wasn't all done? Animals weren't named yet. He wanted that to partner with us. He even gave us a duty. You know, he could have created this where grass never needed to be cut. I know, but he didn't. Because he wanted you and me to have a part in creation. It wasn't done. He made us a new man. It's good. But he wants to partner with us. Put it off. We have to recognize that. That means we have to learn to recognize the old man, which is why, Miss Peggy, that's why we spent 2 weeks looking at it. Because it's so common. We justify thinking that way. And it destroys. We have to learn to recognize it and then to reject it. We're talking about attitudes, thoughts, desires, viewpoints. Miss Pat, these things are dirty, nasty, stinky clothes. We got to take them off. Doug goes out working out in the... Doug, look how I'm going to make you. Doug goes out working in the yard 8 hours. He's all sweaty and he plants flowers and trims the tree and cuts the grass and he even makes the driveway all nice just for you. He comes in with all them nasty, stinky clothes on. You're going to say, take a shower before you get in that bed. Nicely. I made you this hard-working, loving guy. Come on. I expect dinner for that. But we want to stay in those clothes for days. Oh. We're like guys who want to wear the same boxers for a month and a half. Is that gross? That's good because I'm trying to make it gross. Living in the old life is gross. In fact, let me tell you how gross it is. John says in the book of Revelation, it's lukewarm, and he wants to vomit you up. Old man thinking is gross. More than gross, it destroys. Now he goes on to this next picture. And this is that other word that we really... But ye have not so learned in Christ, if so... Oh, wait a minute. I went too far. Having their understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God through the ignorance that is in them because of the blindness in their heart, who being past feeling have given themselves over to lasciviousness, to work the uncleanliness with greediness. Ye have not so learned, if so be that you have heard of him and been taught by him, the truth is in Jesus, that you put off the former conversation, the old man, which is corrupt, according to the deceitful lust. See, I'm throwing away. This is a good page, Brother Bill. You get this page, you can make it sound good. Lust is this other word. I got 4 minutes. Lust is this other word, Justin. Lust we automatically go to it's a sensual thing. But lust is a very generic word. It's epithumia, and it means strong desire. That's all it means. Okay? Great picture is in the book of James, where he talks about, in fact, turn there. James chapter 1. I didn't give Eric any verses. You're going to actually have to turn. Hebrews, James, Peter, John. James chapter 1, beginning in verse 12. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. This is talking about strong desire. This is not talking about a sensual picture. Stephanie, this is talking about when you look out there and say, I need that thing for my life to be complete. Or if we go back to the way of the world, it's when Donnie says, well, if my life's going to be good, Treva needs to start acting like this. If they would just do it my way, things will be better. It's whenever we take that picture, it's whatever we attach our strong desire to and say, this is what would make it better. It's urges. Okay, it's not sensual. It can be sensual, but it's just strong desire attached to something other than God or what God has given us. So he tells us here that these strong desires are deceitful. They're deceitful because they promise something and can't ever deliver. So I just put down some things that we have strong urges for. Because these are the things, these deceitful strong urges, these are things we need to put off. We can't put new things on as long as we're attached to the old things. We're full. We're full up. He don't stretch us. He says, empty. I'll fill you. But, we go on spending sprees because we think, new things will fix it. Well, I don't do that. Okay, we need the new gadget because it's so cool. We all need the new gadget from time to time. Or we take a look at, alcohol or drugs or cigarettes. I remember an old Bob Hope gig where, he would do Chesterfield cigarettes. Chesterfield cigarettes, their slogan was, we satisfy. He would always do this. How many? How many does it take to satisfy? As he had somebody over there just chain smoking away. But yet we're looking for things to satisfy. We use people to our advantage. We manipulate them. Or we take the other side of the coin. We nag, we pressure, we push them into compliance. We lie, cheat, steal. All of these things are about self. We live in a way where we just criticize others, or we hold on to self-pity, we blame, we attack. I just must have, it just must be. This is the way of the world. This is the way of the Gentiles. Put it off. And then here we go. Brother Doug, get ready to pray. Put it off and be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and that you put on the new man, which after God is created in righteousness and true holiness. And next week, Lord willing, we'll take a look at what we put on. We close in prayer this morning.